Hey, what's up ladies and gentlemen, my name is Ignace Aleya, and in today's video I will show you how to create a really cool hologram effect tracked onto your wrist using something like a watch. I created this effect in a project for the MSI Creator Awards. I am invited to be a judge for the 3D artist section, so that's really exciting news. If you want to take part in this contest, I would definitely encourage you to check out the MSI Creator Awards. A lot of people are able to win something, and yeah, it's nice to take pride at your work and show your creativity to a like-minded audience. They also have other categories such as film and graphic design, so if you want to be a creative, do check out their official page. Anyway, the topic of this year is create your utopia with everything regarding to the metaverse. So if you don't really know where to get started and are seeking a little bit of inspiration, this is what I have created. Alright, I hope you enjoyed that. Definitely do check out the link in the description below if you would like to take part on this. Do not fear your skill level in this. Do join no matter what skill you are, because everybody has a story to tell, and in the end it's the creativity, not just the 3D. I hope to see you in the inside, and without further ado, let's get started with today's video tutorial. Alright, so right here I have some footage in Adobe After Effects, and you can also go ahead and download that with the link in the description if you'd like to follow along with the exact same footage as me. Obviously, we're not going to create the exact same result as what I created for the project because that's been a while ago, and I've also used a bunch of assets from our HUD element pack that is available on our website, but I wanted to take this in a route that everyone can take part on this and follow along and not have to pay for a single pack. So we're going to get different results, but I'm going to go over a lot of best practices and I will show you how to get some really cool results in this hologram HUD effect. So in the end, we will have a really cool result. Trust me. So we will drag and drop our footage into a new composition. So the first thing that we need to do is point out a moment where I kind of make the signal for the HUD elements to appear. So right here, I'm still kind of getting prepared, and right here, boom, I press a button, I guess, like right here, or no, like right here. Boom. So you have to guess it a little bit. So right when I give the reaction, let's say right here, we can press the asterisk key on our keyboard and that will create a marker. We don't have to do that. It's just easy for us to know now where we have to get started. So what I would like to do from here is I'm going to split my layer. So I'm going to edit and split this layer. And now I want to basically track my movement of the watch because you can see it's shaking a little bit, not too much, but we want it to be perfect. So before I'm going to start tracking, I want to create a new null object. This is going to store my tracking detail or my tracking data later on. So I'm also going to trim that to the same length of our clip that we just split it. So right here, I'm going to rename it by hitting the return key and then track watch. There we go. Now click on this footage that we have, and now we're going to apply Mocha AE. So right here we have this open, and we're going to use our X-spline tool, and we're going to click and drag around here. And so now we have made a selection of just the watch. You can always make this a little bit bigger if you want to. Make sure that you have enough detail in there. So if you zoom in here, we can clearly see that we have the watch. Obviously, this is going to be a reflection, so we better avoid that. But as it's not really changing in perspective, I think it might catch on as well in the movement. So I'm not sure about that one. And then we have a lot of detail here in the band. And also here we have the sleeve, which also shows a little bit extra contrast. So now that we are at the beginning of our timeline, we're going to track forward, but before we do that, I'm just going to take off all of these. We just want the position here tracked. So I'm going to now track it forward. Perfect. So now we can close this and save everything that we've done here, and we can go into the tracking data click on Create Track Data and click on the layer that we just created and click OK. It's going to create all the data, and now we can change the export option to transform and choose a layer to export to the null that we have created, and we can just apply the export. And now if we click on the null, we can see that now all the position data has been copied to the null, and the null is sticking perfectly to our watch. So that's exactly what we wanted. So now we are going to create a new solid layer, and this is going to be our kind of glow effect, or like these rays that are coming out of the watch, like it's actually projecting something. So we're going to call this projector and click OK. And we're also going to trim that right here. What we can also do is just select everything right here, starting from this. So we're going to select all of the layers here, and we're going to layer, pre-compose everything, and we're going to move all the attributes. And this is going to be effects comp. So this is just going to clean everything up. And now we're just starting from the beginning of our timeline, and now we can just focus on the effect. So we just created this black solid, so we don't see anything at this moment. But what we want to do is add a fractal noise to this, and we also want to disable this layer so we can actually see our footage. Now zoom in here, and we're going to use our pen tool now to draw a mask around our watch. So we're going to draw something like this. Very simple. And now we're going to enable this layer again, and we're going to open some details here. So we're going to open up the transforms or the transform, and then just scale this down quite a bunch until you start seeing some detail here. Maybe something like, 10 sounds okay. And then we can also play with the brightness if you want to, with the contrast. That's completely up to you. So now what I want to do is I want to add a CC radial fast blur. So we're going to apply that right here, and we're going to change the zoom here instead of standard to brightest. So now it's going to take everything that's white, and it's going to make that look into a kind of projecting flare, or how do we call this? God rays. We're going to create a new null object, and this is going to be our center point of the rays. And so what we want to do is click here on our rays, and we're going to click on this null, press P on the keyboard so we see the position. And now we're going to go back to our projector, alt click on the center, and we're going to just drag and drop this onto the center of the rays here of the null. And now the center point of the rays are following this null. So now if we move this, we can see that it's following along nicely. And so the closer we bring it, like they open up, looks really cool. So you can do a lot of cool things with this. You could even animate this if you'd like to. So that's a really cool effect to play around with. So maybe we start something like this, press P on the keyboard, click on the stopwatch, and then move over, and then boom, boom, it's all kind of coming out. So there we go. And now another thing we want to do is just track this to the track watch, boom, and just make sure that we're going to reposition this stuff accordingly. And so now we're going to see that it's not really going to move along with our splines. We also have to make sure that at the beginning, our projector is tracked to the track watch. And so now we should see that the rays are adjusting pretty nicely. So we can now set this to screen so we don't see any blacks, and we can also make sure the results get clipped here. So, and obviously you can always click on the mask and adjust it. Maybe you want it to be more like here, and maybe you want it a little bit thinner around the center point. I'm going for something like this. And now what I want to do is add a tint effect. And we can change the tint color to some bluish kind of tint. Somewhat like this. Okay, so now that we've done that, we need to add in some hologram effects. And so we can create our own effects, or we can use existing elements. We actually have a free VFX pack that includes 10 HUD elements for free, so you can go ahead with the link in the description below to use some advanced looking HUD elements, or if you don't want to spend the time in order to create them. But creating them really does teach you a lot. So I already have a bunch of tutorials, which I will also link up here, so you can see those tutorials. else in more detail to see how you get started on these HUD elements. So right here I have to make a choice. So I'm actually swiping and then clicking. So I'm choosing what, and this is up to you. So yeah, it could be an Instagram post, you're liking something, so that could be all 2D, but I could also go for something 3D. And in this case, we would need a plugin called Element 3D. I want you to know that you do not need this step, and you can also use all kinds of 2D elements. So open up the free VFX assets bundle, and then right here we can see a bunch of really cool HUD elements, and we can see how these are built up. Basically concentrate on individual things if you want to create these on your own. And then we have something like this, which looks like a loading bar. So you can drag all these elements in here, and then it's as simple as just selecting all these elements and changing the blending mode to something like screen. And boom, you see them now through the screen. And now we can press S on the keyboard and then like together set them to like something like 25. So now we can concentrate on them a little bit better. And so now just disable all of them except one, and we're going to start concentrating on where you want things. So maybe you want this one to hold shift, by the way, if you want to scale here proportionately and like add one here. And so I'm going to back to the beginning of my timeline actually. And right here, I'm going to add this one, and I'm going to always parent this to the track watch. And apart from that, I'm also going to press P on the keyboard and then click on the stopwatch for the position. And I want it to be in position like a little bit later. So I'm just going to offset my keyframe. And then right here, I want it to start at the beginning, because it's also animating onto the screen, so it's going to look a lot cooler if you see a lot of things moving around on your screen. This makes HUD elements look fancy. It's just that everything is moving all the time, and a new element appears, another goes away, another one comes in, another goes away. Instead of just making one and showing that one to your audience for an entire minute, that gets boring. So we have to change things up. It's not about creating something complex, it's making something simple and complexifying it. It's a new word. So now we have something like this, one element, boom, it goes on the side. So obviously we want this to appear a little bit faster. So we're going to do something like this, and then we're going to select both of these keyframes, right click, keyframe assistance, easy ease. That's just going to soften the animation up a little bit, and boom, now we have one element. So now we want to do the second one. So click here, and we have the danger. So we're going to make this smaller, and maybe place this one on top here. Again, click on P, click on the stopwatch, move back a little bit, and now bring this one to the center. You could also animate the scale, by the way, and click on the stopwatch for the scale. Press U on the keyboard to reveal all your keyframes actually, and then move this to the last one, and then this one we set it to 0, and now we have an animation that it's scaling up and getting into position. Always select all of your keyframes, keyframe assistance, easy ease, just looks softer and more realistic. Boom, okay, so this is way too fast. So if it's a longer distance that it's traveling, yeah, you'll need more time to do it. That looks cool. And so we also need to parent this to the track watch. And here we're going to definitely see this, it's moving along with the watch. That's really selling the trick here. And so building these things up, that's all you have to do. So I'm going to do the exact same thing for the other ones, except for this one, for example, I'm going to just move this one over to the side. We can see that we have a bunch of elements. I don't want that many, so I'm going to take my pen tool here, and maybe I just want to drag out like a line here, something like this. And maybe I don't want the bottom line here, so I'm just going to draw something like this, and boom, now we have this element, and we can place this here on the side. That looks interesting. And again, do the same thing. So note that I'm also offsetting all my keyframes. I'm always choosing a different position, just makes things more interesting. Things that look universal, they look fake. So try to randomize as much stuff as possible. So let's say that this world map is going to be our first thing that we're going to swipe away. So we're going to make it appear right here, scale it, set it to 0, position, also going to animate it into the watch and track it to the track watch. Press U again to reveal it, and then move it to something like 25, or that's too big. And we're going to move it over here. And so we have this animation, and then I should be clicking somewhere. Apparently I'm taking my time. So I'm also going to change the resolution here to something lower so we can quickly swipe and like load frames here so we see what's going on. So I'm going to set it to quarter for a second and solo my footage. And that's where it comes in handy to make a marker on each moment. So right here at this marker, we're going to create these keyframes again. So we're just going to create 2 new keyframes for position and scale. Well, actually just for position and maybe for opacity. So press T on the keyboard, click here. Press U to reveal all the keyframes. So we have a keyframe for position and opacity. And then move over until somewhat here. And then with the position, we're going to move it over here to the side. And we could basically also create a keyframe for the scale. Move this one over and just scale it down just a touch to 10, not to 0. And then to opacity 20, or no, opacity can be 0. And so what that will make it look like it's actually rotating instead of, just swiping to the left. I'm actually rotating it away behind me because it's getting smaller and it's all about perspective. So it's not 3D, but it's gonna look 3D. And that's what we're essentially trying out here. So that looks cool. So now once one thing swipes away, another thing should swipe in. And so, we can build this up completely. And I have one more element here that I can maybe bring here at the beginning. So I'm going to bring that at the beginning here. And now to blend everything nicely together, what we want to do is make sure that we toggle the switches here and enable motion blur for all these motion layers. And then automatically the motion blur is going to be enabled right here. We can always disable this during our previews, but don't forget to enable this before you render out, because this is going to make everything look a lot cooler and more realistic again. By the way, we also should not forget to make this track the watch. Okay, so that looks really cool. We can take things a little further. So a little tip here, if we enable everything into a 3D layer, press U on the keyboard to reveal all their positions. We can always go in some certain stuff and start like adjusting things to make it look like it's more in 3D. So for example, let's say we want to choose this keyboard. We can go to the position of the keyboard and move it more into Z space. So here in the position, we can drag this to more into the Z direction and scale it down again to make it look the same size. We can also even rotate things so it looks more in perspective towards our camera. So that's also something that is going to make everything look a little bit more integrated. So you can go and take that extra step here. Just make sure that you do it onto the same moment that the keyframing here happens. So, because right here, we should delete these keyframes and place these back into that position. And these are a few extra details that you can take to make everything look even better. So now I'm going to hold Control and press A and then click on this arrow so we tuck everything nicely together. And we're going to duplicate our footage and we're going to right click on the footage and we're going to change this to a guide layer. And so we're going to now select everything, layer, pre-compose, and we're going to set this to HUD Effects. And so what a guide layer does is just when we open up this comp and we want to make an adjustment, we still see it with the footage, but when you solo it right here, it doesn't have the footage. So it's a guide layer to guide you, to help you do your effect. So if we still want to change anything later, we can go back in there. We didn't have to make the guide layer. It's just going to be helpful when you want to adjust things later on. So now we have this here, but we can see if we enable transparency, everything else is also transparent. We need to fill up the empty space in order to add some glow to this, because if we're going to add glow here, it's going to get cut off on the transparent spaces. So we need to add a solid composite. And so the solid composite is originally white. We need to change this to black. And so now there we have it. And now I'm going to add a perfect glow. A perfect glow is a preset that is basically the original glow on steroids. So we give this for free on our website, so you can download that with the link in the description below. But you only have to focus on this top part, the main glow. And by playing with this, you're going to get some really nice looking glows. As you can see, they're really rich and colorful. And especially if we set the resolution back to full, we want to play with everything here. And you can see that the gradient of the glow just looks very, very nice. So now if we press F on the keyboard, change the blending mode to screen, we're going to see our hologram on another level on top of our footage. So we can see now the glow. Play a little bit more with that if you want. And we can also add in exposure. And bring this all the way on top and play with the exposure here to see if that intensifies some parts. Or if you see like, okay, my keyboard is pretty intense, but like my danger isn't, you can always go back into the HUD, go to that danger here, and add just an exposure to the danger. And if you increase the exposure here to something like 1, go back, you will see that now the danger is being more prominent, especially if we start noticing here, maybe like 3, exaggerating a little bit, we're going to see a lot more glow. So if you like the glow, you just copy this exposure to whatever elements that you don't really see. So for example, the custom frame also isn't very obvious. So right here, custom frame, paste the exposure. The fingerprint, paste it. Even the world, we're going to enable this, the interface element, why not? Just here on the bottom, it's really too much. So in this case, we would need to maybe duplicate it and then click on this mask and just remove the bottom part. And maybe set this to an additive. And again, you can also add on the top one an exposure if you want. So I'm really just showing you techniques and you can do whatever you want with them. Okay, so now if you go back to our effects comp, we are going to see we have way too much glow. So now we can take this back a notch. All right, so that looks really cool because of the distortions, because of the glows, because of the tracking that is nicely fitting. And we can also turn this into a 3D layer and even rotate it a little bit more towards me just to get a little bit of an angle going on. Maybe even more field of view. So make sure we do that on the time here, 100. Maybe that's going to be too much. We can try. That looks really cool. We can also add some kind of quick chromatic aberration, which is a free plugin. If you add that and click uncheck unmold, we can increase this, but you can see this kind of, distortion. So that looks really cool, especially on HUD Elements. So you can exaggerate a little bit so we can see it in this tutorial. Creates a little bit of depth in there. We can also add some noise so it never looks perfect. So something like 10. But make sure that the noise is applied before the solid composite. So there we go, maybe something like 5. Don't exaggerate stuff, so maybe 2. There we go, maybe 3. So it's all about playing around. And so all these imperfections are going to make everything look super, super cool. Every technique that I have discussed here is something that hopefully you're something with. If you come up with a really cool result, do share them with me in the description below. And also, if you want to join the MSI Content Creator Awards, definitely do check out the link in the description and join as fast as possible. The doors opened on March 19, so definitely do join in and I will be judging your work somewhere this summer. So I'll catch you in the next one, and until then, create epic videos.